Arizona football gets a rude awakening, a call in Manhattan, and there are far more questions than answers.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats. I'm your host, Mike Luke. All right, now we got to talk about Arizona and Kansas State. That game was disgusting. Where to really start, other than the fact that if Kansas State were to play Arizona 30 times, they would beat Arizona every single time. It was that bad. If you watched it, you know exactly. Arizona starts out the first drive, and it looks like it's a definitive opening statement. But my bigger concern, even at that one, was that there were a lot of third downs, a lot of 3rd and 7s. It didn't look easy. Yes, Arizona did score, but it did not look easy. That was for sure. But then the rest of the game, Arizona did not score, and that is a massive, massive problem. And when you don't score, obviously, against Kansas State, that is going to be an issue. Watching this game, though, I think the first thing that you have to come to a realization is that the coaching staff looked absolutely overmatched. It's one game. I get all that. But Brent Brennan looked like he had absolutely no answers. And Dino Babers, I have no clue what Dino Babers was doing out there. It was one of the dumbest offensive game plans I've ever seen. You have first of all, the delayed 5-second later running back handoffs make absolutely no sense to me. You played exactly into what Kansas State wanted you to do, and you continued to do that. Then the passing game, everything that we saw in camp, it was not there. What is going on there? And I have no clue exactly. I don't have any idea what that was. Then we talked about it before. You saw in camp, you saw a lot of the tight end. You saw a lot of you saw actually a fairly imaginative offense, and there was absolutely none of that. And I think that was very disconcerting. But the offense outside of T-Mac, looked like it had taken major regression, and that just shouldn't be the case. Listen, we all know T-Mac is the best. I think T-Mac's probably the best player in the entire country. He is a next level talent. He is going to be a number 1 wide receiver in the NFL. He is big. He is fast. His ball skills are second to none. He is just a specimen of all specimens. I mean, that's just how good T-Mac is. Now, but the bigger problem, I think, with this team is that everybody else has regressed, and we need to start with the offensive line. Listen, I know you lost Jordan Morgan. Jordan Morgan at Arizona, you don't just replace first-round picks. I get that. But the problem, though, I think with Arizona is that you not only did you lose, you lost talent, obviously, but you still returned 4 out of your 5 offensive linemen. Big Jonas Savanea is supposed to be a first-round pick. Wendell Moy, we know, is good. Josh Baker, we know, is good. And these guys, Leif Magnuson, for whatever reason, they decided not to play him, even though he was fine. This was just not this is an offensive line that looked awful. And then Rhino, who has looked good, Rhino looked completely overmatched in this game. I think that's another thing that's very disconcerting about what we saw, is that the amount of pressures that Rhino gave up was just unacceptable. But still, you return 4 of your 5 offensive linemen. That should not be the case. And then obviously the running game, I'm all right with it. Quali Conley, I like Quali Conley a great deal. I thought the running game was okay, but there was absolutely no imagination with this coaching staff, with this offense, and that's going to be something that is going to come back and I think bite you in the butt. You can't have an offense like that. You just can't. And that was just a pathetic performance all the way around. The other thing too is that everything looked very undisciplined. And I think that's a massive, massive problem here, is that when you have a team, when you have a roster where it looks undisciplined, that is a direct a direct reflection on the coaching staff. And that's something that has to be corrected, because a lot of these penalties were veteran players doing dumb things. Just look at the offensive line, for example. The offensive line giving up penalties left and right. I mean, heck, you get the ball to the 40-yard line of Kansas State and then you march it back 30 yards off holding. I mean, what are you doing there? And then with obviously there's just been some other things. Montana Lamonius Craig catching a pass but getting forced out of bounds first. These are just silly errors that just can't ever occur, and they occurred throughout the game. Now, granted, Arizona wasn't dealt any favors by the officials. This was a listen, when you've got 80 yards in penalties and the other one has 5, I get it. One team was definitely more disciplined, but you're generally not that much more disciplined at the college level. That to me was an issue. That was something that, but either way, it doesn't matter. Arizona was going to lose this game and get destroyed either way. But again, we talked about it before the season. Arizona's got to have a top 15 offense. You return way too much talent. And yes, you did lose Jacob Cowan. You lost Tanner McLaughlin, obviously, and Jordan Morgan. Those are all NFL players. I get it. I get all of that. And I'm not saying that it should be as good, but you should have had an offense that could at least look somewhat the part. It did not look the part at all. That is a major, major problem for this team going forward. And again, Kean Burnett, all throughout camp, looked like he was on the verge of being a superstar. And I don't know where he's been. I haven't seen anything. And not only have I not seen anything from him, it doesn't look like they're even trying to incorporate him, which is obviously an issue as well. But so far, there's really no other way to put it other than the fact that Dino Babers gets an F. He is that was an atrocious performance. Not only was that an atrocious performance, that was something that I don't think people are going to forget for a long time. Now we're going to get to the defense here in just a second, but first, eBay Motors. Check it out, eBay Motors, my friends. All kinds of good stuff there. As you know, cut out the middleman. Millions of parts for your MVP. Win every time with parts that fit your ride. Here's the deal. Most people end up getting screwed when they take their car to the to the dealership, and they're like, hey, wait a second. Why in the world am I having to pay all of this when I shouldn't have to pay any of this? And I think that a lot of people are like, wait a second, man. eBay Motors says, do not worry, my friends. We will get you checked. We will get you all settled here. We will get you all settled. Not only will we get you all settled, we are going to take care of you as well. Millions of parts for your MVP. Again, win every time with parts that fit your ride. eBay Motors. Awesome stuff. And LinkedIn. Everybody knows somebody that got a job through LinkedIn, and that is because it works. With LinkedIn, you know that, people have gotten jobs through LinkedIn. You probably know somebody that got a job through LinkedIn, and guess why? Because it works. And great thing about LinkedIn too, you also know that you can post your job for free. LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege. Check it out. Another one of these ones. You're going to thank me later on. Thanks for keeping it Locked On Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now, let's talk a little bit about the defense. The defense looked absolutely atrocious at points in the second half, but I don't have nearly as much a problem with the defense as I do the offense. Now, listen, I know there was some issues with. I know there were some issues with the obviously with the contain. Again, that is a problem, and I don't know what else to say about that one. But Arizona also only gave up 7 points through 2.5 quarters. Now, you could say that Arizona got lucky. Avery Johnson had a brain fart. You're right, he did have a brain fart. He also had a time as well where they missed a field goal. I get all that, but it is what it is. But that dam obviously broke, and it was going to break at some point in the second half, but you still only gave up 24 points. That should be enough on the road to be able to win when you've got an offense with the amount of players that they have. But defensively, let's talk about it. There's not nearly as much talent on this defense as there was last year. Jacob Manu has not looked good so far. Chuba Muai, not the people that thought that, he was going to be an upgrade over like a BBN, I didn't see it. But he's obviously is not. This has not been the defensive front kind of got pushed around outside of Ty. Also, the secondary, I can't really complain about the secondary because it's not really like Kansas State passed a ton on them against a good team, though. Against a good offense, Arizona might have been in some trouble. But overall, I can't hate that. But the contain on running plays is absolutely insane. And not being able to set the edge is wild. I don't understand why this has been such an issue for Arizona and why it continues to be an issue. Now, like I said, when I look at this, I think the defense played well enough to possibly win. But we also got to remember here, too, that the defense also doesn't have the expectations the offense does because the offense is returning far more proven, better players. But the defense, like I said, not great, probably a C- performance, something like that. But sooner or later, that dam was going to break, and I can't really fault Akina. To me, the way bigger issue here is Dino Babers and the offense. I also don't know exactly what Brent Brennan is hanging his hat on. What does he look on at this team and say, what is their identity? Jody Ayler put that out there, and I thought it was a great point. What is the identity of this team? I don't think anybody has any idea. And generally, like with Jed Fish, you knew that he was going to bring in tall, skill position players. They were going to look to throw, or they were going to look to do a lot of different things. And that just wasn't the case, though, with this. That just wasn't the case. I don't know exactly what there is. Plus, the other point, too, it's not like this coaching staff has brought in a lot of dynamic talent that has been, next-level contributors. I mean, we'll see. Maybe that changes. But this overall was just an absolute butt-whooping. And we're going to talk about something else here in just a second. But Factor Meal Kits as well. Check out Factor Meal Kits. Another one. Listen. Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50. Use code LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first order at Factor Meal Kits. They're here to help you. They want to make your life easier. Listen, in this day and age, we know about how difficult it can be to be able to eat right, to be able to really kind of set yourself up for success. Factor Meal Kit says we are here for you. So again, use code LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first order. Again, check this out. A lot of people are using it, and it's good. That's the other thing. It's not like you're eating crap. It's not like you're eating bad tasting food. This is good stuff. So again, check it out. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now, this was one of the most ghastly coaching performances that I've ever seen. We'll see if this is able to change. But if this happens against Utah, then this fan base is going to be done. I know, like I said, Brent Brennan has done absolutely no community reach out or anything like that. I get it, is what it is. He's basically saying that, my product is going to be able to speak for itself on the field. But here's the issue. When the product doesn't speak for yourself on the field, that's where it becomes a little bit of an issue. And so far, this team has been woefully underperformed. Again, I'm not going to sit here and make it out like this is this is a top 3 team in the country. But let's be honest, when you've got 5 players coming back of the caliber that Arizona does, and you got 3 guys that are looked at as projected first round picks, that should be good enough to be able to win football games. I don't know what else to say about that. It should just be good enough to be able to win football games, and it hasn't looked the part. I think the biggest concern was probably that NAU game, because with NAU, again, it's not like NAU had a dynamic player like a Devin Dampier that you're like, all right, well, I could see it. NAU basically stopped Arizona defensively, and that's something that I think is you got to look at it and you got to be greatly concerned if you're the University of Arizona about the offense. The offense is a massive problem at this point, and it shouldn't be because of the kind of talent that this roster has. Now, we're going to talk a lot more tomorrow about this. Obviously, we're also going to talk a little bit about where we see, this coaching staff. What can they do? Is there anything they can do? Do they have any answers? But this was just, like I said, this was an embarrassment across the board, and this is something that Arizona can't have happen again. All right, on that note, though, as always, thanks for making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Mike Luke. We will be back with you tomorrow.